Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Friday. I hope that work week's in the rearview mirror. If it's not, we will get you to the finish line on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and plenty to do on this Friday. Got Preston Guy coming up here in 15 minutes. The NFL has set its salary cap. Garrett Nussmeier's talked about his injury in a little bit more depth at the NFL Combine. LSU's got 4 baseball games between now and Monday. So we got a lot to get to. Let's crank it up the way we do every single day with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
Welcome to the doldrums of the baseball season. This is the toughest stretch for baseball fans from a college perspective. The newness has worn off a little bit. The tournament, quote unquote, is in the rearview mirror. Now you've got 2 weeks of non-conference action against overmatched opponents before you get into the throes of conference play. And that's tough for fans. I think the players will be fine, but it's a bit of a tough time for fans to lock in a little bit. And this weekend, you've got Dartmouth coming in, you've got Northeastern coming in, and that's just not going to register for a lot of people. And so the question becomes like, what are we in this for? And I've taken a look at both of these teams and certainly have watched LSU play every game that they've played thus far. And I do have some thoughts. First of all, like, who are they playing this week? Dartmouth is in the Ivy League, obviously, and they don't play on week 1. So Dartmouth started their season last weekend. They've only played 3 games. They come in having beaten Fairleigh Dickinson on opening day. They scored 4 in the 8th inning and 1 in the 9th to win 7-6 on opening day. Then they lost their next 2 games to Gardner-Webb and then to Fairleigh Dickinson. So they come in here 1-2, having played no competition. Northeastern comes in with a really solid program. Northeastern was 48-9 entering the regional last year. 48-9. They've made 3 regionals in the last 5 years. Last season, they had 6 MLB draft picks. Remember, it's not a 40-round draft anymore. It's only 20 rounds. They had 6 guys drafted. So it's a good program. This team might stink. I think there's a real chance they stink. They have been outscored 83-27 in 6 games this year. They're 0-6. In 5 of their 6 games, they've allowed 10-plus runs. Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, run-ruled them on Saturday and Sunday of last week. So their team ERA is 15. It's not looking good for Northeastern, who has, again, had a good program. I like this team on the schedule for Jay Johnson. This is a team that you look at and generally think you're going to win a lot of games, may help your RPI as much as a non-conference game can help your RPI. It may not. These 2 teams are way, way below LSU's level. I think they're way, way below Milwaukee's level. I think they're way, way below Kent State's level, and certainly the team LSU played last week. This is a significant step down in competition for LSU. So what are we looking for? And my answer to that question is very simple. It's asking a lot, and it potentially is asking too much, but I'm asking for it. I need Casey Evans to go out there tonight and dominate Dartmouth. Dominate. I want 6 innings, 1 or 0 runs. I want 10 or 11 strikeouts. I want 1 or 0 walks. I want it to look like an ace. That's what I want. I've talked a lot about this for 3 weeks now, and it might be unfair, and it's certainly not fully trusting a coaching staff that has coached pitchers exceptionally well. I should just lean on that track record, right? They got Cade Anderson right. They got Anthony Ianson right. They got Chase Shores right. They got Gage Jump right coming off of injury. They got Luke Holman right. They got Griffin Herring right. Jay Johnson was here when Ty Floyd made rapid improvements. This staff, Nate Yeske for the last 2 years and Jay Johnson over his time, they have gotten really good stuff out of pitchers. Even in the most crucial times, Thatcher Hurd came through. He came through in Game 3 of the championship series. He came through in the regional in Chapel Hill. they've gotten great stuff out of great pitchers. And so trusting in that track record would make sense, but I'm nervous. I'm nervous about it. I want Kason Evans to be a legit ace at the front of LSU's staff. I want him to look like Cade Anderson. I want him to look like Gage Jump. I'm not going to throw Skeens in there, okay? But I want him to look like Alex Lang. I want him to look like the alphas that LSU has put out there over the course of the last 15 years. He didn't have to be the 6th pick in the draft. I'd like him to be the 6th pick in the draft, but I want him to look like Gosman. And those guys in this spot go out there, 2 starts under their belt, and dominate. Dartmouth's not any good. They lost to Fairleigh Dickinson and some other team I don't even know. Gardner-Webb. Hyphenated universities. I want Kason Evans to go out there and stuff them in a locker. That would make me feel better. And he's capable of doing it. I watched him last year out of the bullpen, but watched him take Little Rock and put him in a blender. He struck out 9 guys in a row. It's in there. I'm not asking for something that's not there. But as I talked about on Monday of this week, and I'm not coming off this, when I sit here and I talk about this baseball program in October, and I talk about this baseball program in January, and then we get into the early season for this team and this program, I am grading on a championship curve. That's the scale here. And it's awesome, but it can at times feel unreasonable. Maybe I'm being unreasonable. I don't know. You be the judge of that. But I want him to go out there with a 94-mile-an-hour fastball, a plus changeup, a curveball that he's been working on, a slider, and just carve up Dartmouth. That's what I want to see. Cooper Moore did it opening weekend in Milwaukee. They couldn't hit the changeup. He struck out 11. Last week, William Schmidt hung 5 zeros. Was it an artwork? I don't know about that, but he hung 5 zeros. And Kason Evans got him up and down in order 3 of the 5 innings last week. And he hung 4 zeros. But they squared him up a couple times. I want him to be awesome tonight. That is what I'm looking for. I believe fully. I understand how the sport works. I watched Tuesday's game. Trust me, I get the whole deal. I think LSU is going to win all 4 games this weekend because I don't think these 2 teams are any good. But it's about how you play. It's about what it looks like. And I will give you a pass on opening day. Cade Anderson didn't have his best stuff on opening day last year. We interviewed him in the press conference after the game, and he was kind of ticked off. So I get it. And I'm not asking for your best every single day. But I do want to see the ace come out. Because when we talk about grading on that championship curve, I don't think LSU is going to go win a national championship. And that's what we're talking about here, right? I don't think they're going to go win a national championship if you've got an iffy guy at the front of your rotation. One, it's going to put you behind the 8 ball in SEC series. Think of the great LSU teams and the success that they've had on Friday nights in the SEC. It just sets you up. And you're facing first-round picks a lot in those games. You're facing MLB pitchers a lot in that first game. And Kason Evans has the ability to do that. But I would grade his first 2 starts of this season at like a C. I need an A tonight. I need an A performance. Because you're facing an Ivy League team. And so that is what I'm looking for first and foremost this weekend. Bounce back from Cooper Moore as well, and then let's build on that with William Schmidt. That's what I told you on Monday with Schmidt. I said, look, I like that. I like the outing. Thought it was a good outing. There are still some big misses, but I see the things that I want to see stuff-wise. Now it's time to hone them. And the thing that I told you about William Schmidt in January, when I talked about him a few times and talked about the outing that he had right before the season started where he struck out 11, it was an inter-squad, but he struck out 11. I think one of the biggest keys for William Schmidt, this is just my speculation. I don't know William, never spoken to William. I don't think I've even interviewed William Schmidt. Maybe I have, but I don't remember it. This is just a thought. And it all stems from that SEC stat from last year where he walked 11 guys in 2 SEC innings. That is a mental thing to me. That's a mental thing to me. And how do you cure a mental issue? Confidence. Confidence does it. Where does confidence come from? Performance. And these are the weeks of the season where you can perform to a level that gives you the confidence. Because when William Schmidt figures this thing out, it's going to be trouble for other teams. because that fastball's not coming down from 97, and that breaking ball is real. So if you're going to go out there and he's facing Dartmouth as well, Jay Johnson hasn't announced his pitching plans, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's going to keep it the same. He has not announced his pitching plans beyond Case and Evans because he hasn't gotten the information from Northeastern, and he's just not going to be the first coach to turn in his lineup card. He's going to do that at the same time. So my strong assumption is that you'll see the same rotation, Evans, Moore, Schmidt. But I think you'll see Schmidt on Sunday against Dartmouth, and I want to see him bouncing around the mound. I want to see him spinning that thing. I want to see him blowing it by guys at the letters. And that is the key to this weekend. Your two most talented starting pitchers, the two guys who I think are the key to unlock this team, those two guys are facing an Ivy League school that's played 3 games and lost 2 of them to Fairleigh Dickinson and Gardner-Webb. It's time for those two guys to combine to go 12 or 13 innings, strike out 20, and give up 1 combined run. I realize, I hear myself saying it. I know that's a lot to ask, but I'm asking a lot. I'm okay asking a lot. Just because you dominate Dartmouth doesn't mean that you're going to dominate Vanderbilt on opening weekend in 3 weeks. But if Case and Evans goes out there today and he goes 4 2/3 and walks 3 and gives up a 3 spot in the second, I'm going to come on here on Monday and be like, I'm not sure this is the deal. That is what I'm going to do. Because I didn't love everything I saw in January. I haven't loved everything I've seen early on. But that is not to suggest it's not in there, because I have seen that in the past. It's time for it to come out. I love the talent. I do trust the coaching staff. I want to see it. And I realize that might sound spoiled, and it might sound unreasonable and unrealistic, and I get it, but I'm not coming off the standard at LSU here. There's a standard at LSU, and it looks like all the guys I rattled off. It looks like Kate Anderson. It looks like Paul Skeens. It looks like Alex Lang. It looks like Aaron Nola. It looks like Kevin Gaussman. That's what it looks like. Gage Jump's about to make the big leagues. I want to see that type of thing from Case and Evans this weekend. That's the key. We'll talk offense later on in the show. We've got more time. But the pitching this weekend has got all of my focus. I don't really care what the offense does against a Northeastern team who comes in here with a team ERA of 15. They got run ruled twice by Minnesota. That's not of my concern. What of my concern is these pitchers controlling the zone and dominating overmatched teams. That's the weekend to me. That's it in a nutshell. My Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Preston Guy talking football next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Gotros Outdoor Power. Gotros Outdoor Power. You can find them online at gotrosonline.com. They're family-owned and operated, 22 years in business, Baton Rouge and Gonzales. And you think family-owned and operated, and maybe your mind goes to small. They're not small. Gotros has the largest parts inventory in Louisiana. They are the largest Hustler inventory in the state by far. So if you're looking for a zero turn, check out my friends at Gotros Outdoor Power. You can find them online at gotrosonline.com. Just stop by on Airline Highway. If you're driving down Airline Highway and you see that mountain of orange equipment, that's them, Gotros Outdoor Power. Of course, if you're in Gonzales, you know where they are as well. It's time for that grass to start growing. Time for you to start cutting that grass. They can get you behind the wheel of a Hustler mower for less than $100. Financing is available, and you get unbelievable customer service with a family-owned and operated company at Gotros Outdoor Power. Check them out online, gotrosonline.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Friday shows brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. The whole menu online at corksfishandshrimp.com, corksfishandshrimp.com. Talk some more baseball a little bit later on as well. But now it's football time. Preston Guy, TigerBait.com with us on Fridays talking Tiger football. Joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Preston, how are you?
Fine. How's it going?
Going good. How has you got an eye on the combine?
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it. I know Nussmeier's quote today really is making its way rounds through the Twitterverse, and I don't think it's necessarily anything surprising, particularly to come from Garrett Nussmeier, who would stand a lot to gain from saying, hey, I had an injury all year, and that's what affected my performance, because then it's an injury issue and not a regression issue, which An injury issue, well, time heals injuries, but regressions may not be just healed by time. So, certainly he has, an active agenda to get that out there. And I think that anybody with two eyes could tell he wasn't right physically this year. So, definitely that's making its way around. I'm always just keeping it a brief. I try not to overreact at the combine. I feel like combine reactions are, how you end up taking, a fourth or fifth rounder in the first round.
So let's talk about Nussmeier a little bit more, because we were out there at practice and we knew that he, potentially gotten hurt in a practice. The internet went nuts, and then we saw him not throw. And my antennas went up when he didn't throw. But I don't remember watching him during August practices and going, he's hurt. Did you feel that way?
I remember being concerned that the offense wasn't moving right, but I just had so much confidence. It's like, as long as Nussmeier is healthy, we've seen what he's able to do, and his defense does look better. I was definitely on alert, particularly that Saturday scrimmage. I think it was actually like Saturday night or late afternoon in Tiger Stadium when Nussmeier didn't throw at all, not even a little bit. I was certainly a little alert about that, but then I'm like, well, he's a fifth-year senior, and, he had that little knee banged up. Maybe they just don't want to work him too high because, frankly, he doesn't need the reps. But we probably should have been more alert in retrospect.
Do you think it would have looked different if he was fully healthy?
No, of course.
Okay.
Look, here's the deal, man. You can talk about all the other issues. Certainly he wasn't reading the field his best, and there were other issues as well, but you can tell physically he just didn't have the gun he had a year ago, and there were a lot of throws that needed to happen more consistently. I think about the Barryon Brown underthrow against Louisiana Tech, where it's just like, my God, that's a wide open touchdown. You just underthrew him by 15 yards, right? Or against Ole Miss, there's a couple throws where he's barely able to engage his core. It's interesting to see how this season would have gone had he had been fully healthy. There's a strong argument that maybe Brian Kelly is still the head football coach of LSU if he's fully healthy. But I will argue till I'm blue in the face that great football coaches have backup options. Players get hurt. That's part of football. You need to have a backup plan. And clearly, they didn't have a good one in Michael Van Buren. And I think, frankly, they should have turned to Michael Van Buren a lot sooner, even though he wasn't very good last year. I think it was fairly obvious to me that at least he had the physical tools to move the offense the way you needed to with the playmakers in place, right? You kind of waited until there was zero stakes left to make that move. But no backup plan that was ready to go for coaches. It was Nussmeier or bust, and they went with the or bust option.
It certainly was a bust. It appears that Harold Perkins is not going to work out at the combine. Does that surprise you a little bit?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit, because it's not like the tape is magnificent. You know what I mean? It's not like there's just this crazy body of work, right? It's the physical tools. That, to me, screams that something about his out-of-combine tests were not as impressive as they would have liked to. And means that they know his stock's only going to go down if he doesn't do it. So, yeah, little surprised to see that out of Harold Perkins.
Is there a player that you're curious about their draft stakes that's up in Indianapolis? There's 11 guys up there right now. Is there somebody outside of that? We talked about Perkins, who I think is a wild card. Nussmeier, because he's a quarterback, is a bit of a wild card, too. Is there anybody else you kind of got eyes on?
Oh, yeah. I think the obvious answer is indeed Garrett Nussmeier, because there's a lot of people who look at the 2024 tape and still feel like, well, that was an NFL player, right? And then this year, he didn't look like someone who should be drafted. So I think there's going to be a lot of variance. And I think this being a weaker quarterback class really does enable him to be a guy who's drafted in a spot where, maybe he's able to work I don't think anybody's going to draft Garrett Nussmeier with the plan of, he's our starter next year, right? But maybe that gives him at least a high enough draft pick to be considered valuable enough to earn a roster spot and work his way, right? Because if you're on a 53-man, at least you got a fighting chance, right? But I would argue maybe some of these receivers, like I'm looking at like a guy like maybe Chris Hilton, who did effectively nothing during his career at LSU. I mean, certainly compared to his own expectations. And we can talk about all the excuses in the world, and probably the best excuse he's had is, well, everybody was a victim of this offense this year at LSU. But, the measurables are still there. He participated in all 4 Senior Bowl events, and had a good showing as he worked his way up and get a draft spot. We'll see.
I'm curious to see what he runs because I think there's a possibility he could be the low 40 for anybody at the combine if he runs it the way that he can, and that's always going to be loud at some point if you show you're the fastest guy in the draft class. So we'll see. I'm curious about that as well. Let's shift over to recruiting, Preston, if we could. I know a lot's being made about Easton Royal. How do you feel like LSU potentially stacks up there? He's pledged to Texas, but LSU's certainly not given up. What do you think about LSU's opportunity there?
Yeah, worth noting, his Texas commitment came during the previous coaching administration, right? Easton Royal, he's every bit of a good prospect, every bit of his 5-star rating, and money's going to be an issue here. And my ultimate thing is certainly, being the hometown team, LSU has a good in with him. Warren Easton is, not far from campus. LSU's all too familiar with Warren Easton. And I think it's going to come down to a lot of, can LSU match the NIL offer from Texas? And not only can they, do they have the will to? Because this coaching staff, during their tenure at Ole Miss, their philosophy was, look, we're going to recruit high school, but we're going to pay for the portal. It doesn't make sense to put money on the table for a kid who's played high school football when you can get it to someone who's had college reps and shown you on the college level what they're capable of. Well, that's at Ole Miss, where the high school recruiting isn't as elite. In fact, there are 5 players in the top 15 of the Rivals ratings right now that are originally from Louisiana. That's a lot of that's 1/3 of the top 15 players in the country. It's insane, right? That's a lot of in-state talent that fans don't take well to here at LSU when you've got a 5-star guy from Louisiana, and it's almost like a shot at LSU. It's disrespectful to leave the state and go somewhere else. And I don't think fans are going to sit around nicely. Right now, you've got none of those 5 guys committed, but you got to make some headway in some of them. You can't go 0 for 5 and keep the fan base happy this year. I think they're going to have to throw some money at that.
I would suggest this is probably an unanswerable question, like to know for sure, but I'm curious your opinion. Like, is it sustainable to go sign 40 kids a year and spend as much money as LSU did this year in the portal? Is that something you can do every year?
40 kids in the portal or 40 kids total? There's a big distinction there.
Well, to do what they just did, an overhaul with 40 kids from the portal and be the number 1 portal class and spend however much money they just spent.
Yeah, I don't think you can bring in 40 portal players a year and build a consistent winning program. You're constantly going to be, throwing in new starters. You're going to have a whole new top to bottom. Ideally, you're doing things with your NIL structure that makes, some multi-year deals, right? And you're able to coach this team up, and you're not just talking about re-rolling the dice with a whole new roster every single year. Now, if you ask me 40 total players, meaning high school and portal, that's probably the future if I had to guess. There are certain programs who've done an outstanding job with maintaining their roster together, but I think 20 combined is probably going to be the new normal, especially as you move into a 105 scholarship limit roster, right? We're going to be having a lot more and more conversations about adding that in. It's 40% of your roster or 38% of your roster. If you do the averages there, that's not too far off from, 1/3 of your roster and a player stays for 3 years. You get what I'm saying, right? Like, it's not that outlandish to say it's 40 total the new. I think 40 in the transfer portal plus whatever you get in high school, that's unsustainable in my opinion.
I would tend to agree with that as well. Last one, Preston. We don't know much of anything about Labor Day weekend at this point, but are you a little surprised that LSU came out in an early line and it's an 11.5-point favorite over Clemson? That seems like a lot.
Yeah, that's a huge number. That's big. But I was talking about it. I filled in for Scarborough's show this week, And, the thing is I still like LSU minus that colossal number. Just look at Clemson. What is there to believe in at Clemson? Just looking at it. I mean, they're replacing the quarterback, and their offense was completely anemic. They did not go to the portal and pull offensive guys. I mean, Dabo's kind of the most stubborn coach in college football when it comes to I'm gonna win it the way I want it with Deshaun Watson in 2016, right? Just has not made the adjustments and adaptations, right? I think he took 10, 11 players in the portal, and 7 or 8 of them were on defense. So that I don't know what is there to necessarily entice you. They're losing guys on the defensive line, including Stephylin Green, who's going to be playing for LSU. I would probably take LSU minus 13.5. I think that, I know that's not necessarily the way Vegas looks at these things, but I mean, based on what I'm seeing, I'm fine saying LSU's a 2-touchdown favorite over Clemson. That doesn't concern me.
That place is going to be an absolute madhouse for that football game. It's going to be something, but we got a few baseball games to watch before we get to that. Preston, we appreciate the time. Have a great weekend, man.
All right, talk to you soon.
Preston Guy, TigerBait.com, talking a little bit of football. When we come back, every year, the NFLPA puts together team report cards, and they blast them out so we can make fun of a lot of teams. Well, they had a little bit of a tiff and decided they weren't going to release the grades, and so they didn't this year until somebody got them. I got the Saints. We'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
First American Bank and Trust. First American Bank and Trust started up in 1910, still here 116 years later, and they've grown 25 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana. What does that mean? Well, that means there's always one near you if you're in Southeast Louisiana. It also means that all of their decisions are made. In your commercial loan, your personal loan, all their decisions are made in Southeast Louisiana. You don't get some call center or you get somebody out in Seattle. You get somebody right here at home. The people who make the decisions on your commercial loan, the people that make the decision on your personal loan, go to church with you. Their kids are playing with your kids on the T-ball team. And the community feel that they've cultivated there at First American Bank and Trust is real. That's why their management averages 25 years with the bank. First American Bank and Trust, no matter if you're in St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, St. John, Lafourche, Terrebonne, if you're in Southeast Louisiana, there's a First American Bank and Trust near you. Trust them with your commercial loan. Trust them with your personal loan. It's First American Bank and Trust.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
March Madness is heading to Las Vegas, and LouisianaSports.net is sending one of you plus a friend with it. We're giving away a 3-night Las Vegas getaway from Wednesday, March 18th through Saturday, March 21st, just in time for all the madness. Hotels, stay, and flights are covered. All you have to do to enter is head to LouisianaSports.net, click the March Madness getaway link, sign up now before our March Madness Pick'em launches. Get yourself entered, and you could be watching the tournament from Las Vegas instead of your couch. Winners will be announced Monday, March 2nd.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC. FabryChevrolet.com is the website. It's still February, right? It's the 27th. We got one more day in February. If you want great savings on a new truck, you need to go to Fabry Chevrolet GMC today or tomorrow, because you're talking about up to $11,000 off Chevy Silverados, 1.9 APR financing. You're talking about up to $13,000 off a GMC Sierra, 0.0 APR financing. It doesn't get any lower than 0.0. There's all in the lot there. Highway 61 in St. Francisville. You know you're going to get an amazing buying experience with the Fabrys. You know you're going to get great service after the sale. They've been in Baton Rouge for about 3.5 decades, 35 years. Fabry Chevrolet. Check out the entire inventory online at FabryChevrolet.com. Make that short drive to St. Francisville. I'm going to St. Francisville tomorrow, but I'm not really looking for a truck at the moment. Maybe you are, and that means there's more for you. Check them out online at FabryChevrolet.com. All right, every year, the NFL Players Association puts together a survey and grades for each franchise. And every year, we get the results. And sometimes we point and laugh at that team or that owner or that facility or that coach, whatever the case may be, because the grades are funny. They're anonymous and they come through voting. And so you just get a sense, on the record, how players feel about different organizations. And I've been fascinated in listening to Jake and Flynn talk about the organizations that they played through the years, played for through the years. You hear Flynn just glow about the Packers. Oakland, not so much. Hester loves the Chargers, loves them, but he calls them the Bush League Bolts because their organization was not great, and he saw the light when he went to Denver there at the end because that is run magnificently. And it's just fascinating that there is that much range in how the organizations operate. And so we looked at that every single year, and the NFL looked at it and went, you know what? We don't really need everyone pointing and laughing at our organizations. Let's keep these confidential. And they did, briefly, because they've been reported now, so we've got access to the information, even though they didn't want us to. So how do the Saints rank? So I'll tell you, in 2024, overall, the Saints ranked 10th. In 2025, overall, the Saints ranked 12th. This year, they split the difference, 11th. But there was some movement in what I call some interesting spots. First of all, the thing that we always make fun of the Saints that's completely irrelevant to us, but certainly relevant to the players, the food and dining. Jordan, we talked about this.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
New Orleans, they got an F in 2024 and a D- in 2025.
That's ridiculous.
So they spent a bunch of money on it. A- this year.
Hey man, look, I give Gail her credit where it's due. That's improvements. Like we've seen the other teams. Like I think
get an F.
Yeah, no, forget F. I've seen you saw the Bengals. It was an F-. It was an F-.
What does that mean? Zero?
That means
that's a zero. What are they giving out? Lunchables?
Lunchables? No, they're giving out dog food. Lunchables. Come on now.
So the Saints moved up to an A-. That's good, but it doesn't really impact the fans. I think there are a couple of these moves though that you should feel good about as a Saints fan. Head coach with Dennis Allen, the last 2 years, 24 and 25, B-.
What?
That's not a great grade, if we're being honest.
Oh,
B-.
for Dennis Allen, a B-.
Maybe some of the defensive guys had his back. Maybe some of the offensive guys didn't spend any time around him. Who knows? But he got a B-.
B-.
This year, Kellen Moore, A-. And that's his first year. You figure he probably learned something on the job. That's good. And defensive coordinator.
Okay.
I love this. A for Brandon Staley.
Staley, the man.
I want him to stick around a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, here's the hope with Staley. The hope is that he was so bad with the Chargers, which their record wasn't that bad, but that he was so bad with all that talent with the Chargers that nobody really wants him for a while. Because Kellen's got his side of the ball, and he's going to handle that, and you need a strong personality on the other side. And I think the players really like Staley, and the results down the stretch, I know the competition, I know the quarterbacks. I watched it just like you did. But still, it's the National Football League, and it wasn't like the Saints were trotting out 6 Pro Bowlers on defense.
Yeah.
And they were good. So I like Staley getting that grade there. That was awesome. As far as offensive coordinator goes, I guess this is Doug Nussmeier, kind of Kellen Moore too, but I guess it's Doug Nussmeier's grade. B- there. That's not super awesome. But I think Kellen's kind of driving that bus as well. What do you think the general manager got for the Saints?
The general manager, Mickey Loomis, man. Well, the players voted on it. I think the players kind of like Mickey, man. I don't know. I just feel if Kellen got an A-, right?
Yes.
Kellen got an A-. I mean, Mickey probably got an A.
He got a B.
A B? Okay.
He got
okay.
a B. The Saints only got 1 C and nothing lower than a C. And the C makes a lot of sense, and there's nothing they can do about it, really. It's the home game field, and I believe that's the actual surface they're playing on.
The turf, yeah,
they play
like
inside.
Yeah,
okay, we're not. The Saints are not going to play. The Saints are going to play in a dome forever and ever, amen.
Yeah.
Because you can't play in September at noon.
Ridiculous.
You'll melt, and nobody will go. So they got to play in a dome, and people don't like turf. It just is what it is. The players don't like turf, and so you got to see. But everything else was above board on that. The one. So at this point, B is kind of the low points of the grade, and that's locker room is a B, and then treatment of families got a B, and that seems like it's not great. But 2024 treatment of families got a D+.
Oh Lord.
And then 2025 it got a C, and now they're up to a B. So it seems like
progress.
This is going well, and maybe it's because this comes out. Maybe it's because it's public, or maybe it's because Gail saw it and I need to whip this thing into shape. But the grades are pretty good, and you're talking about rating 11th. I think that's pretty good.
Well, no, I definitely believe that the owners are see these grades and are making changes, because that's one of my ticket to leave is today. A team actually is making a change because of one of the grades they got. So y'all stick tuned for that. But also, a big deal what I was talking about earlier was the Bengals. They have an F- in cafeteria. It was a D last year, so it got worse. So I mean, that means Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, they saw that grade, was like, you know what? Y'all didn't like those Lunchables? Dog food.
There's just no excuse for that. These are multi-billion-dollar entities.
Yes.
Staff a cafeteria and put out some good food. These guys spend countless hours there.
Pretty much all day.
Make it good. It's ridiculous. But the Saints got an A or better in food and dining, training room, training staff, weight room, strength coaches, team travel, head coach, ownership, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator. And again, the worst grade they got was a C in home game field. But they've basically stayed steady in this list, and that included when they thought you had the worst food and dining in the league and you hated the head coach. So this is good vibes with the Saints. I'm feeling good about the Saints. I think Saints fans are feeling good about the Saints. It just feels good to talk about some good things with the Saints. That was a brutal 2 years, and now we would bring Sharif on every week and we bring Luke on every week, and I didn't enjoy those conversations. And look, there's no guarantee that you're not going back to that. You could fall backwards. It's happened. Washington thought it had its head above water. Next great generation with Jane Daniels, and all of a sudden he got hurt and they fell out. The bottom fell out there. It can happen that way. And we thought the Lions were set up to be awesome for a long time, and they didn't have a great year this year with a very difficult schedule. So there's no guarantees in this thing, but it just feels like things are pointed in the right direction, and it's the time of hope. It's the year. It's the time of year where hope's going to spring eternal. You're looking at all these draft prospects. You're looking at mock drafts. You're looking at the salary cap. You're looking at free agents, and nobody's losing games right now. So the vibes are good. But this is encouraging because look, for the first time in a while, over the next 2 off seasons, the Saints will actually be able to court decent free agents that have options. It's not just a bargain basement. So you want your facilities, you want your players to feel like they can talk up the organization when you're courting free agents. And that really hasn't mattered too much for the Saints for the past 10 years because they can't sign any free agents because they don't have any money. We're going to talk about the salary cap in hour 2 because they just released what it's going to be. Newsflash, the Saints are going to have some spending ability because they've moved the cap up, and that's the way things always go. But it's over $300 million now, and the Saints aren't that far over, and they can restructure some deals to get to it. So now you take this good grades that the players have given the Saints, and now you've got an opportunity to court some free agents over the next 2 years, and that's where you hopefully can help transform your team.
Nah, man, it's beautiful because it actually feels kind of weird that I'm so excited for the Saints because I don't think I've ever been this excited recently since maybe Derek Carr stopped the murder rate from going up a couple years back when he was 2-0.
2-0.
Yeah, it was 2-0.
It was a great 2 years. We had just lost Louisiana Sports.net.
Literally.
And Matt wrote a column like, I haven't had this much fun watching the Saints forever. And then for 2 years after that week, it was a disaster.
Exactly. So it's like you would have.
They were damn good for 2 weeks, though.
Hey, Hunt, I mean, people stopped dying. People had to watch the Saints. Like, it was that important that people had to watch the Saints. So that's how you know it's important down here. I feel good.
I know Dallas was week 2. Who'd they crush at home week 1? Carolina or the
Tennessee? I think it was Tennessee. I think it was Tennessee.
I know they went to the Dallas and beat the brakes off them. What a thing of beauty that was. All right. We'll come back and close out hour number 1 with some thoughts on last night in the PMAC. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Get that Generac home standby generator. Just gives you peace of mind. Peace of mind is a beautiful thing. And in this part of the world, power outages are coming. Because we've got storms, we've got hurricanes, we got bad drivers run over a power line. And then you're out of luck. Not to mention 7 months out of the year, it's blazing hot, and you don't have an air conditioner. Unless you have a Generac home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. Go with the locally owned and operated company. Neil and Melissa have been at this for 40 years. You can get a Generac generator from one of the big box stores, but what's the customer service going to look like on that? If you need a repair, if you need maintenance, well, it's non-existent. That's not the case at Boudreaux's. Call them at 985-397-1562. That's 985-397-1562. The Gonzales location, fairly new, just been open a couple years. They're 225-300-9389. Call them and get that home standby generator put in today so you don't have to worry about losing your power when that next storm blows through. It's Boudreaux's Electrical. You can find them online at boudreauxelectrical.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Check them out. Government between Foster and Jefferson. Always time to get a late lunch here. It's a Lenten Friday if you're observing and want a catfish plate, want a shrimp plate, those crispy shoestring fries, swing on by Corks. Delicious, delicious stuff over there at Corks. They're on Government between Foster and Jefferson. That entire menu is online at corksfishandshrimp.com. And also remember that February is Heart Month. Heart disease is the number one cause of death for men and women, but it can be preventable. Stay active, exercise, fruits, veggies, manage stress, get enough sleep if you can. That's certainly a big, big deal. Avoid smoking, limit alcohol intake as well. Your primary care provider is your partner in prevention. They can help monitor your blood pressure, cholesterol, overall heart health. So get those regular checkups. Early detection and guidance can keep you on track for a healthy heart. Make your health a priority in Heart Month and schedule that primary care appointment at ochsner.org/brprimary. Small steps today can lead to a stronger heart tomorrow. You can check them out online at ochsner.org. Last night was senior night in the PMAC, and senior night has probably lost a little bit of luster these days because you play for 4 schools, you play for 3 schools, you play for a couple schools, you spend 1 year at a school. Like, what's your connection to that school, right? I'm not criticizing the portal. As I've said many, many times, like, I'm glad Paul Skeens showed up here. I'm glad Tommy White showed up here. Anthony Ianson, Jaden Daniels, Angel Reese. Like, that LSU has benefited from the transfer portal as much as any school in collegiate athletics, and that's great. But two things can be true. That's great for LSU, and senior day probably loses a little bit of its luster, right? But not last night, because Flau'jae Johnson had her senior day last night as LSU took on Tennessee. And it wasn't her best game, but I thought some of the things she had to say post-game were awesome. And that's someone who really and truly loves LSU. Really loves LSU. You talk to some of the guys that have played in one-year football guys, and maybe they love LSU, maybe they don't. But you don't have to question that with Flau'jae. 4 years, national champion. And as Kim said last night in the postgame, like, she's just all over the place on campus. And I'm not there on campus, but, like, this is something that stands out to me about having watched Flau'jae now for 4 years at one place. She just looks like she's having a good time. She looks like she's having a good time on the court. She looks like she's having a good time on camera. She looks like she's having a good time with her music. And she's a fun player to watch. And I think depending on what happens this year in the tournament, this could start to kind of shift a little bit from the Angel Reese era, because they have the title and she was the face of that team, to the Flau'jae era, right? Because, like, you think about teams in terms of eras. I think about Simone and Sylvia, right? Like, that was the 5 Final Fours. Like, they're the face of that. There were certainly other great players, Tamika Johnson. I mean, the list goes on and on. But that's the Simone and Sylvia era, right? And they've got their jerseys hung up. And I don't think Flau'jae is knocking on the door of getting her jersey hung up in the rafters, but she certainly was a big part to the national championship team and is now the face of the team this year. Michaela's great, and it's been a great year for Jada Richard, and Fulwiley's a heck of a talent, but this is Flau'jae's team, and she's got a chance. We've talked with Matthew Burney a few times to put a real stamp on a legacy here in March. You get back to a Final Four, you get to a championship game, you win a national championship, you win 2 national championships. Like, that's legendary stuff. And I just wanted to point out that in this era of transfer, she stuck it out. And she's just been a great ambassador to LSU. She is part of ushering in the NIL era. And LSU is a spot where we have seen spotlights just explode, men's and women's. Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Paul Skeens, Dylan Cruz, Livy Dunn, Flau'jae Johnson, Angel Reese, Haley Bryant. These are massively famous people that have blossomed in the NIL era at LSU. And I say this all the time. I don't think this is because I'm in this purple and gold bubble. I really don't think so. Like, tell me the Florida athletes that have done that. Like, Florida won a national championship in basketball last year. Like, is there a superstar from that? Jack Caglione on the baseball side, Wyatt Langford, like, they're not as famous as Paul Skeens. They're Livy Dunn's famous. And I think Flau'jae, because of what she's done in basketball and then in the music world, is famous. It was cool. I heard Charlie and Jimmy talking about this early today. They showed a video from Flau'jae's freshman year before she ever played a game, and she had a bunch of goals. National championship was on there. Check that off. Want to talk about becoming an artist, getting a label, Check those two lists off. She talked about yesterday having recorded a song with Lil Wayne. She's accomplished so much in those 4 years, and it's all been right here in purple and gold. And that's someone who will have a connection to this place forever. And I think that's kind of rare in collegiate athletics. It makes content great for us. It's like portal this, portal that. There's 40 new football players. This is incredible. Like, oh man, Tommy White shows up, and there's Paul Skeens for a year, and he goes nuts. It's like, here comes Sam Levitt. Like that's exciting stuff to cover for us. But the negative side of that is like, do you have a connection? Or are you a mercenary? You don't have to question that with Flage. She's had an amazing career, and I'm pulling for him to get it done in March because I think this could be kind of a stamp on an era. Kim Mulkey became the first coach ever to win 25 games in her first 4 years at a school last night, and they took it to Tennessee, and we think they're good enough to make a run at this thing, and Flage will certainly be right in the middle of it. So hat tip to her for an incredible career. I know the PMAC was full last night. She deserved that. Hopefully she kind of gets over this mental deal with free throws. It was tough to watch her go to the line against South Carolina and miss those two, and now she's struggling from the line after that. She's got to shake that out. She's got one more regular season game, and then they go to the SC tournament and see what they can do there, and then it's time to turn the lights on. That's why this program exists at this point, is to get into March and make noise. And so hopefully Flage can get that thing rolling. But senior night for her. So awesome stuff in the PMAC last night. And the Tigers take it to the Lady Vols. Longest winning streak ever over the Lady Vols. Not quite the program they once were under Pat Summitt, that's for sure. So it's a hat tip to the Lady Tigers and to Flage Johnson. That's it for hour number one. Fast moving hour number one. Started things off talking baseball and what I'm expecting from this weekend series. LSU playing Dartmouth and Northeastern. Of course, Grambling State is in town as well. They'll play the other two teams. LSU won't see them, but they'll play the other two teams in the daytime hours and then at night on Saturday and Sunday. We talked about that at the top of the show. Also talked a little football with Preston Guy, and then did a little bit of Saints talk as well. Hunt on LSU is where you can find our LSU content. Hunt on Saints is where you can find our Saints content. Catch our full shows on demand. Search Hunt Palmer Show wherever you find your podcast, of course, on YouTube as well. Busy hour two coming. Got some more baseball talk to get to. Got some more Saints talk to issue. Garrett Nussmeier met with the media earlier today and had something very interesting to say. We'll get to that after SportsCenter.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com, HighlandIG.com. If you're a business owner, do you know what EPL insurance covers? Do you know what crime insurance covers? Do you know if you need that? How do you know what your building's worth? Have you gotten an evaluation done? If there's a claim, could there be co-insurance penalties? Do you know what that is? Like, these are the questions that not every single insurance broker is skilled in. Some folks are just in insurance to try to cut costs and get as many clients as they can. That's not the name of the game for the Highland Insurance Group. They're here to make sure that you're covered. They're, of course, going to consider premium. But they've got experts who know what programs and what carriers are best for what businesses. And they'll match you up with that and make sure that you're covered. Because the last thing you want to do is spend on premium and then have an uncovered claim. Talk to Jonathan Carbo and his team at the Highland Insurance Group. Make sure your insurance is right. Get a second set of eyeballs on that. They're online at HighlandIG.com. That's HighlandIG.com.